to Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date developments in the global financial world.
Italy's government approved on Monday, April the 6th, a new emergency decree that will offer 400 billion euros worth of liquidity and bank loans to companies hit by the virus. The legislation, combined with the previous stimulus package unveiled in March, would allow the banks to offer credit totaling more than 750 billion euros to try to stave off the collapse of the Eurozone's third largest economy. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte promised a further package later this month to help the people most financially hurt by the epidemic. More than 16,500 people have died of the COVID-19 in Italy since the crisis started in February, the highest toll of any country. Rome has shuttered all businesses not deemed essential to the supply chain, at least until April the 13th. Italy said the Treasury will shield banks from the losses on 90% of loans to companies of all sizes in a move expected to inject some 200 billion euros into the economy. The guarantee can be extended to 100% of possible losses for loans not exceeding 25,000 euros. Lockdown restrictions imposed to fight the infection are expected to have pushed Italy's economy into its worst recession in modern history. Business lobby Confindustria said last week it was forecasting a 6% decline in national output this year. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said he hoped the curbs could begin to be removed after April the 12th, but gave no further details.
A pared-back version of Australia's parliament voted on the government's third tranche of fiscal measures on Wednesday, returning to pass an emergency $130 billion stimulus package to help cushion the economic blow from the coronavirus pandemic. Fewer than normal lawmakers were present for the one-day sitting to minimize the risk of the virus spreading, with a package known as Job Seeker passing the House of Representatives and onto the Senate chamber. Citing the threat of a prolonged economic downturn, Morrison's government has promised to spend $130 billion over the next 6 months to subsidize the wages of 6 million Australians. Morrison had earlier promised one-off payments to small and medium-sized businesses, and the opposition Labour Party has said it will back the stimulus package.
A partial lockdown began in Singapore on Tuesday, with most workplaces and schools closed in a bid to break the chain of COVID-19 community transmission in the city-state. During this month-long lockdown, workplaces will be shut apart from essential services, and schools have been moved to home-based learning. Singapore's citizens and residents are being advised not to socialize with anyone outside of their own household. Public transport will continue operations, whilst food outlets will remain open, but the government has urged people to either opt for takeaway or order delivery. Although the first case of COVID-19 landed on the country's shores as early as the end of January, infections initially remained low thanks to a strong tracing, detection and isolation framework. However, over the past month, there have been a marked increase in new cases as the numbers breach the 1,000 mark. Measures to reduce escalating case numbers were put in place, such as travel restrictions and the closure of entertainment venues, but as case numbers continue to increase, contact tracing became harder. The Singapore government has kept open lines of communication during the global pandemic, which has helped to bolster a belief in its transparency and allowed for a sense of calm. A third unprecedented budget was announced to help cushion the economic blow to workers, businesses and households as a result of the partial lockdown, adding an additional $3.5 billion to the already announced $40 billion to support the economy. The island nation is digging deep to keep the country afloat.
Denmark is expected this weekend to reveal plans to relax its lockdown, becoming the first country outside of Asia to do so, reasoning that the risks of a deep recession may now be more dangerous for Danish society than a second outbreak. The country was one of the first in Europe to shut down, and with the number of coronavirus cases stabilizing, it is now facing tough decisions on reopening that many other governments around the world have lying ahead of them. On March 30th, the government said it would start gradually lifting its lockdown after April 12th if the numbers of cases and deaths remained stable, apparently confident it can guard its population against the second outbreak. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said she hoped to be able to present a plan for the first phase of a reopening by the end of this week after consultation with the other parties in government. In considering whether to ease the restrictions, the government is trying to balance the need to keep its population safe and the economic risks of a deep recession. Denmark had reported 139 coronavirus-related deaths as of Friday, with the number of patients hospitalized falling this week.
The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang on Tuesday presided over a meeting which unveiled new measures to stabilize China's foreign trade and inbound investment, including establishing a more integrated pilot zones for cross-border e-commerce, supporting the processing trade with new steps, and hold the China Import-Export Fair, the Canton Fair, online to stabilize foreign trade and investment after the COVID-19 outbreak. The meeting articulated that facing the massive impact brought by COVID-19 pandemic to the world economy and international trade and investment, authorities said that they should uphold expanding opening up and take a series of measures to stabilize foreign trade and inbound investment to mitigate the economic fallout of the pandemic. The measures include increasing 46 more cross-border e-commerce pilot zones, granting tax breaks to retail exports in the zones, and encouraging foreign-funded companies to invest in a wider range of industries. Companies in these zones will enjoy support policies such as exemption of value-added and consumption taxes on retail exports and an assessed levy of the corporate income tax. They'll also be supported in the joint building and sharing of overseas warehouses. The meeting also decided to convene an online Canton Fair in mid-June to allow traders from across the world to display their products virtually. On the part of stabilizing the global supply chain and supporting the resumption of work, the meeting pointed out that one solution is to expand the logistical capacity of the China-Europe freight train services and other freight train services. The meeting also unveiled supportive policies to extend the current tax incentives to small and micro businesses and farmers through to 2023.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on April 7th has declared a state of emergency for Tokyo and 6 other prefectures to fight the new coronavirus infection in major population centers and unveiled a stimulus package he described as among the world's biggest to soften the economic blow. Speaking at a news conference to seek public support for his decision, Abe emphasized the need to reduce contact with people by 70 to 80%. To mitigate the mounting pressure on medical facilities in Tokyo, Abe unveiled a plan to transform Olympic-related facilities into medical facilities to accommodate 800 coronavirus patients with mild symptoms. Japan has been spared the big outbreaks of the coronavirus seen in other global hotspots, but a recent steady rise in infections in Tokyo, Osaka, and other areas led to growing calls for Abe to announce a state of emergency. The Japanese government will provide more than $55 billion in cash payments to families and small and medium-sized businesses affected by the outbreak. Abe also plans to protect employment by supporting $240 billion in interest-free loans and offering a grace period for payment of national taxes to help ailing businesses.
been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical financial stories. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.